When I was 57, my only son sold my house right out from under me, packed up his wife, and moved 2 states away. They left me exactly $150 on the kitchen counter and a note that said, "You will figure it out." 15 years later, my grandson Googled my name for a college assignment and called me in tears. Within 12 hours, I had 200 missed calls from the same son who once threw me away like trash. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since noon, lighting up the dark of my private study. I sat back in my leather chair, watching the notifications stack up, feeling the cold metal against hands that had spent 15 years rebuilding everything that was taken from me. I finally swiped and answered, said nothing. Heavy, ragged breathing, then a cracked voice. "Grandma?" It hit me like a fist. Caleb. Last time I'd seen him, he was 7 years old, playing in my backyard, completely unaware of the betrayal his parents were quietly orchestrating inside the house. I let the silence sit there. 15 years of it. "Grandma, please don't hang up," he begged, voice breaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know anything. I was doing a research paper for class, profiling philanthropists in biotech. I typed your name in just to see if you were still alive. The Forbes article came up, the one about the woman who donates half her fortune to senior housing. Grandma, is that really you?" I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. "Yes, Caleb, it's me." A sob tore out of him. 22 years old, and in that moment he sounded like a lost child again. "They told me you abandoned us. They said you ran off with some man, took all the money, left us with nothing. But the article says you started from scratch 15 years ago. It says you were homeless. Grandma, what did they do to you?" I didn't raise my voice. I never needed to. "Your parents made a choice," I said calmly. "They chose to take everything I had, and they chose to lie to you about it ever since. I didn't run away, Caleb. I survived them." He was still crying when the line muffled violently, a door slamming, a scuffle, a sharp gasp. "Give me that phone," a voice barked. Then a new voice, breathless and frantic, took over. "Mom? Mom, is that really you?" It was Derek, my son. The man who'd looked me in the eye 15 years ago, smiled, and quietly sold the roof over my head. "We've been looking for you everywhere. My company's in trouble, a real crisis. When Caleb showed us that article, I couldn't believe it. You have to help us. We're family, Mom. You have to save us." I felt nothing. No fear, no rush of maternal love. Just cold, calculated clarity. He wasn't calling because he'd missed his mother. He was calling because he'd just discovered his mother was worth billions. He kept begging. I pulled the phone from my ear, hovered my thumb over the red icon, and tapped it. The line went dead. The room went silent. The first move had been his. The next one would be mine. The next day, in my boardroom, Derek didn't waste time with apologies. He slid a thick folder across the glass table and demanded a $2 million loan for his failing real estate firm, throwing around words like liquidity crisis while sweat beaded on his forehead. His wife, Nicole, sat beside him in a silk dress paid for with someone else's money and had the audacity to demand I set up a trust fund for Caleb, claiming my abandonment had left a psychological void in his childhood. I let the silence stretch. I let them think I was a tired old woman wrestling with guilt. Derek broke first. He slammed his fist on the table and screamed that I was sitting on billions I had no use for, that I owed them for disappearing. He actually believed 15 years of silence meant weakness. That's when the doors burst open. Caleb stood there, chest heaving, having run straight from campus. "You lied to me," he said, voice shaking but growing louder. "My whole life you told me she abandoned us. I read the dates. She lost everything the same month we moved into that mansion. You stole from her." Derek's face twisted. He crossed the room in 2 strides and slapped his own son across the face. I didn't think. I moved. I shoved my son back hard enough that he stumbled against the glass table. "Don't you ever touch him again," I said, voice low and lethal. Derek spat that I had no right to interfere. I looked at the man I'd raised and felt the last thread of parental patience finally snap. "You're right," I said calmly. "I owe you both exactly what you deserve." I told them about my foundation's gala the next night. Every investor, every journalist would be there. I promised I'd announce my successor on stage. Derek's eyes lit with greedy hope. They had no idea they were walking into their own execution. That evening, Oliver, my chief counsel, laid out what his investigation found. Derek wasn't facing a downturn. He was drowning in $4 million of embezzled investor funds under active FBI investigation. He needed my money to plug the hole before federal agents came knocking. "We have proof," Oliver said. "Should I call the authorities now?" I shook my head. "Let him put on his tuxedo. Let him walk the red carpet and feel the crown on his head. A fall from the bottom step is forgotten, Oliver. I want him falling from the very top." The next day, I met Caleb in a small cafe and told him everything. His father's crimes, the real story of the driveway, the $150, the note. He wept, calling them monsters. I didn't disagree. I slid a silver flash drive across the table. "Tomorrow night, before I take the stage, find a man in a gray suit near the service doors. Hand him this." I told him the choice was finally his to make. His hand closed around it. He nodded once. The battle lines were drawn. The gala ballroom glittered with cameras and champagne. Derek and Nicole worked the red carpet like royalty, dripping in diamonds bought with my stolen credit line. Derek telling reporters he was stepping up to lead the empire so his aging mother could finally rest. I watched from the mezzanine, cold and composed. When a reporter called up asking if I'd name my successor tonight, I simply said, "Everything will be given to the one who truly deserves it." Derek's eyes lit with triumph. He had no idea what was coming. On stage, I told the room my story, the empty driveway, the $150, 15 years of rebuilding from nothing. Then I dropped the announcement. Every dollar of my fortune, every share, every asset was being placed into a new foundation, the $150 trust, dedicated to protecting elderly victims of financial abuse from the very people who were supposed to love them. "There are no corporate heirs," I said. "Not a single cent goes to my bloodline." Derek's face drained of color. He lunged at the velvet rope, screaming that I was senile, that I had no right. Nicole grabbed a reporter's microphone and screamed that I was lying, that I'd abandoned them, right up until Caleb's voice cut through the chaos. He walked to the stage, took the mic from his mother's shaking hands, and told the entire ballroom the truth. His father was a thief. His parents had left his grandmother homeless with $150, and they'd come tonight to use her as a shield against their own crimes. The room erupted. Derek, unhinged, charged the stage to silence his own son. I stepped into his path and shoved him back with everything I had left. Security tackled him to the floor. Oliver walked out with the forensic folder and dropped it beside Derek's face. $4 million embezzled, federal charges pending. Sirens wailed outside. FBI agents marched in and cuffed him on live camera. Then Nicole, in a final act of pure self-preservation, screamed at agents to arrest her husband instead, and Derek, just as fast, threw her under the bus right back, confessing to crimes in real time just to save himself. They tore each other apart in front of hundreds of cameras. As they dragged him away, Nicole grabbed my leg, sobbing, "Mom, please, we're family." I looked down at her and said the only words that mattered. "You will figure it out." The exact words from that 15-year-old note. 6 months later, at their sentencing, the judge gave them each 15 years, 1 year for every year I'd spent rebuilding. Poetic. Exact. I didn't hand Caleb a check afterward either. I handed him a broom in that empty ballroom and told him honest labor would clear his head. Later, I gave him a contract, tuition paid directly to his school, and a real job at my foundation, filing paperwork, earning every dollar himself. He signed without hesitation. 2 years later, I sat in the front row of his college graduation, listening to him tell thousands of strangers that the greatest lesson he ever learned came from a push broom and a crumpled $150 bill, and that the woman who saved him did it not with a check, but with a boundary. Now that $150 note sits in a glass case in my foundation's lobby, a warning to every family member who mistakes an old woman's silence for weakness. The silence was never surrender. It was just the calm before the storm.